we're so lucky to be able to have our own businesses where you're like literally putting your heart and soul into it. If you're going to let someone else's voice take over, then you're giving away this great opportunity of being you. Like,
you're giving away your power. Damn,
yeah, this is not the time to do that. Like, if you have it, I think it's a privilege to be able to do this, either as a side hustle or full time. If you have the talent to do it, yet the heart to do it, that's a privilege.
The courage.
Yeah, and do it like you. Don't let anybody else's voice get in there. Let it be 100% you. And if you're wrong about something, it's okay. You'll learn. You'll figure it out. Like, life will let you know.
The Perspective Podcast is fuel for your mind and creative grind. Each week, we break down the art of healthy hustling, overcoming the inner critic, and growing your creative business.
PC family, today I'm joined by Zulfa, aka the Cosmic Feminist. Zulfa, what's going on? Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. And I'm just going to spill the beans right now. I'm not perfect. And this is round 2 of recording. I said people won't know, but something I screwed up. I believe in transparency, but I screwed up the first time. So she's been awesome enough to give us her time again. So act like we just haven't done this yet. So how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing a lot better. So let's just dive into this. So for those people who don't know, can you give us a brief Wikipedia page summary about yourself, of who you are, what you do, and then why people should care?
Yeah, I'm Zulfa. I'm an illustrator whose work sort of focuses on feminism, spirituality, and empowerment. I'm also sort of the voice behind the Cosmic Feminist, which is a platform that, encourages women to, love themselves first and foremost, empower themselves, fight for their rights, but also connect to their higher selves sort of all at the same time.
And I want to commend you again of how awesome your elevator speech is. A lot of people just aren't prepared for that. So if there's like one thing someone can take away immediately is have your elevator speech ready to go. And I want to backtrack and kind of dive into the Cosmic Feminist brand, because when I found you was around this time last year. And I believe it was through like Tom Ross potentially in his coaching program, or maybe he just hit me up on the side and told me to take notice of you. I can't remember how big your following was, but I have just watched you explode over the past year, especially. And it's just been incredible to watch. And I know I'm not the target audience or demographic for what your work is for, but we'll talk about like those brands and buckets here of what were those brands and buckets that you really just dove in and niched down, and how was the power of niching down really help you gain all this traction in the world?
Yeah, I think we say niche differently.
In Midwest, it's niche, but on the coast or everywhere else, it's niche.
Niche. I've tried saying niche, and it feels so weird. So I'm like, it's fine. We'll just
I said niche for the first, ever since I started this podcast, and then I'm like 28 starting a podcast. Now I'm hearing other people say niche. I'm like, I've never heard anybody say niche before in my life. So say whatever is comfortable for you, and I'm going to do me.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I think niching is so important. I think it's the main reason really why I grew on Instagram. And it's been really helpful for me as an artist to find my voice and my style, to be honest. I think one thing to point out about niching that's really important is that you can't niche if you don't have a subject matter or something that you're super passionate about. And it can't be like whatever people are talking about at the time, or whatever is trending, or whatever is in, or what you think you should do. It really has to come from the heart. And I think that will depend on sort of where you are in your life. But I'm pretty sure that at any point in your life, you can find something that really sort of feels incredible and feels like this is something I want to talk about, not just feel strongly about, but I also want to share with the world. So for me, at the time when I started the Cosmic Feminist, my handle on Instagram was just Zulfa. It had a bunch of underscores in it and stuff like that. It was just all over the place. I had an underscore before the name, and then after, it was just whatever. It was a mess.
Hard to find.
Yeah, and hard to say and all of that. So anyway, so at the time I felt like I didn't have much to lose. I had a smaller audience. I wasn't feeling like I was getting traction, but I knew I had something to say. And so at the time I was just lucky enough that I had a passion, and I knew what that passion was. I've always sort of thought of myself as a feminist. That's sort of a building block of my personality, but spirituality is recent for me. I think in the last like 2 or 3 years, it's been a really prominent part of my life. And to be honest, a really important part of my empowerment. So I felt really strongly about it. And I'm lucky enough to have had that at the time. because as I mentioned, it's kind of hard to niche if you don't have a topic that you're really passionate about. And so I was just thinking about it, and I was like, in my head, I was like, it's like cosmic feminism. And that sentence made so much sense to me. I was 100% sure it was a thing. It was already taken. So I looked it up, looked up the URL, it wasn't taken, looked up the Instagram name. Some people had mentioned it, like had said something about it. But the Instagram name wasn't taking. So I became the Cosmic Feminist. So when I talk about niching, I say that the first important section is also obviously figuring out your voice and what you want to say. But then the next important part for me was actually like solidifying it into a name that I picked for my brand. And that's sort of like betting on yourself. That's not like being like, I'm kind of going to niche, but I'm not going to go all the way because I'm kind of scared. That's going all in and being like, I'm going to change my name. And that's fucking scary. It was so scary for me at the time. I was like, I don't want to change my name. Like, people aren't going to find me anymore. What about my old posts? But it's funny you mentioned Tom Ross, because I was part of his coaching group at the time. And I've gotten tons of messages from him saying, please change your name, even before the cosmic thing happened. Because he was saying, like, your name doesn't mean anything. And that's something I realized later on is a lot of artists, we like to put our name as our brand, but your name means nothing to anyone. It's just meaningful to you. And that's how I felt at the time. I was like, but it's my name. It's who I am. And so it was a big step to kind of make that change and change the name of the brand essentially, but it was also really exciting. And then the last part of it, which is, I think a lot of people have a hard time, but for me it was the easiest. It was just like picking a style, because if you already picked it like a topic, then the style is kind of going to come with it. The cosmic spacey theme kind of came with the cosmic, topic that I'm talking about. And then the last step was just being like, what are the colors that I want to work within? I wanted to give myself some sort of guidelines to work within. At the time, I think I picked like 3 or 4 colors, and it was definitely scary. Like, don't get me wrong. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to commit to these colors? And guess what? I didn't 100% commit. I kept adding more colors. I remember at some point I had this like deep purple that I liked at the time, but now I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of bored with it. I'm going to use this other shade of purple. So there's so much room to sort of like have fun with it and get creative. And my advice for anyone listening is just like, trust your creativity. You're going to figure out a way to have fun with it and to do different things. You're not really going to be as constrained as you think you are. You're a person. You're going to always be growing. You're always going to have new experiences. So there's always going to be something else to add to the brand that you created. So yeah, that's essentially what happened with the Cosmic Feminist.
So 1, you basically created brand identity guidelines for yourself. And 2, I love how you said like niching down is scary, uncomfortable. It's not a life sentence, as like Tom and I have talked about in the past. And within it, you build these constraints. With constraints breed creativity, and with that, you can thrive within it. It's less guessing. I guess that's like the confidence I found as I continue to set like more guidelines and parameters for color schemes or cohesiveness or my brand message, so I can continue to show up for that awareness. When you were just getting started, I wanted to ask you this. When did you start making that switch to the Cosmic Feminist? How long ago was that where you're just like, I'm not gaining traction, and then the niching down happened? How long ago was that?
I think it was in August of 2019.
Really?
So when was it? Like, I'm having a hard time doing math right now. I don't know how long ago that was.
By the time this will come out, just, a couple months under a year. So,
yeah.
Okay. Wow. So it really has been a year of explosive growth. So truly niching down, leaning into that fear and just going all in.
Oh, I genuinely think I wouldn't have grown if I didn't niche down in exactly the same way I did. Because, and I think something else I didn't mention about the whole process for me is I also committed to adding text to my illustrations, because it adds context. Now, there are a lot of illustrators that do a really good job of not adding text, but what they're trying to say with their art is pretty clear. And so for me, in my experience, it's like, how do you grow? The main thing that has helped me grow is when people share my work. And if my work isn't saying a very clear message, they're most likely not going to share it. No matter how beautiful it is. Like, there's so many illustrators that create work that like blows my mind, but there's not really a lot of context. And that was a hard pill to swallow, because at the beginning I was like, you know what? I don't want to add text. Like, people should get what I'm trying to say. But no, people don't have that much time to figure out what you're trying to say. And so adding text definitely helps. I mean, I don't think everybody should do it if they don't want to, but for me, it really helped. And then like when people go on your page, they should really get what you're trying to say within like the first 4 seconds of them being there. So all of those things coming together and picking a style, it helps people have less of a time deciding, oh, what does she do? Should I follow her?
Yeah. And I think that's powerful in itself, is just setting expectations. I know you not necessarily, we can talk about this here shortly, is I know you necessarily, it's not about attracting clients. You know, that's just that's an option you have. It's more about connecting with a deeper tribe of people who vibe to you, your story, your work. You're giving them permission to kind of start sharing their story as well, and through products and everything like that. But at the same time, you're setting those expectations for people. I think that's the most powerful thing you can do. That's what the brand guidelines is, set expectations for you as well as for other people, whether that's your Instagram bio that immediately captures your brand message,
right,
or if it's those text or context, you're basically adding a caption on your image for those who are too lazy to click more to read a caption.
Yeah. And the thing with the caption is that if someone shares your work or if someone reshares it, they're not going to keep your caption. They're going to interpret it the way they want.
Ooh, that's huge too. That a shareability factor. Again, you're not looking to attract a specific client. You're looking for your shit to spread like wildfire, not for popularity, but to empower. You know, and so having
power, and it's really a ripple effect that I realized very, very early on, because the source of my posts is really me and experiences that I'm going through or seeing around me in the environment that I'm in, and being a woman in the world. And there's that changes with time. And when I share something and I feel like a lot of people are relating and a lot of women are relating, that empowers me, first of all. Like, it makes me realize that I'm not alone, and that makes me feel incredible. And then I feel like maybe I affected one person in one part of the world to make a decision or to make their day just a little bit better just by my experience. I'm not faking. Like, I'm just saying what I felt and hoping that someone else feels the same way. And that ripple effect, I think, can be very powerful. And it doesn't always have to be like really serious topics. It can be a funny topic. It can be something fun and lighthearted. It can be whatever you want it to be. As long as you felt the thing, someone else has felt the thing too. And that ripple effect, I think, can be so powerful. And we tend to like minimize the power of our voice. We think that our voice doesn't matter. And I mean, I go through that every day. I'm like, who the hell do I think I am saying these things? But I remind myself that I'm one person in a collective and we're all feeling similar things. And the more we talk about it, the more we're going to help each other. And so that ripple effect is so powerful.
I love that, because I talk about the ripple effect too. Any like this whole podcast is meant to like have that ripple effect and be geared towards the lost version of myself, 5 years ago, who could not find any type 100%. Of purpose in my work. But it's like, I love that. It's about chasing, instead of chasing the glory, which are the vanity metrics of, followers, features, shares, tweets, whatever. It's more about chasing the impact. Again, that rippling impact. And I think the glory is kind of a byproduct of it once you really find your groove and consistently show up over time. It may just be something you're creating for yourself and it feels like you're speaking to no one and reaching no one, but you could be hitting one person. You don't even know it. But then 5 years later,
every single person matters.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter how many followers you have, as long as you're being true and sending a message that you believe in. Literally every single person that's listening matters.
Exactly. And people might be silent admirers, and it may be 3 years later, they let you know, at least from my experience, it's like, hey, I've been listening to you for a while and it's just helped me do X, and X with X, Y, or Z with my side hustle. And I'm like, wow, I wish we would have connected in the beginning so I didn't feel like I was just talking into the void. And we tiptoed just a little bit ago around imposter syndrome. And you said you still wonder, like, who am I to like share necessarily my story or think that my voice matters? And I would love to hear you talk more about that, because that's something I deal with every day, is like the spinning web trap of imposter syndrome, comparison trap, because I feel like I'm comparing myself of this kid from Iowa who doesn't have a crazy design degree, doesn't know all the design ins and outs, the legends, the books, the histories. Like, I don't know any of that. And I'm over here like trying to make a name and empower people. Like, who am I to do what I do?
That's crazy, because like, that's how I feel. And then just fill in the blank. Who am I? I'm just that, whatever it is. And it's crazy. It's literally like I don't know anyone who's like honest and I've had a conversation with that didn't tell me they don't have imposter syndrome. So we all go through it, yet somehow it still makes sense to go through it. Although we know that literally even the most successful people go through it. So I don't know. I mean, for me, I feel like it's like a weekly visitor. It has to happen, sometimes daily.
A weekly visitor? Shit, mine's daily
I'm
visitor.
like, hello. Yeah, sometimes daily. I'm like, hi, yeah, I mean, welcome. So basically I'll go through my Instagram and I'll be like, oh shit, why am I telling people these things? Why do I think I can say these things? And it's a moment, it comes and it passes. And I think it's just so important to continue doing the thing. Don't wait for the impact to let it prove your imposter syndrome wrong. I think that's the thing. As long as you believe in it and you're putting it out there into the world, it's going to have an impact that, just like you said, that you might not even know about. So if you're waiting for people to tell you that you're amazing, that's just outside, confirmation that you have something to say. When really just, if you believe that you have something to say, then that's really all it takes. The imposter syndrome is going to come and it might stay. And I try to tell myself oh, I'm sure in a few years it'll go away. I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's somewhat going to still be there. I'm just going to probably have a better way of dealing with it with time. But right now it's there. It's there all the time. It's telling me that I don't know how to draw as well as other people. It's telling me that who the fuck are you and why are you telling people what to think? And I get so scared that I'm oh my God, am I being too know-it-all-y? What am I doing? There's so many things that I can list out that my imposter syndrome is so happy to tell me about, but I'm not going to stop because of that, because it's I can't do that to my voice. I can't do that to my instinct. I can't do that to my higher self. I have to give it the credit that it deserves.
And
despite imposter
I think
syndrome.
I've heard you mention it before. You talk about the higher self and instinct a lot, as well as I believe you mentioned something about comparison comes from the ego. Can you compare the two of the ego and your higher self?
Because I imagine my higher self as, it knows what's best for me, or it is me, but it knows what's best for me. It knows that, life is not easy and we're going to go through this together, but it knows that there's really no need to compare to anyone because I'm living my own journey. If they're better, there might be a lot of people that are just better at whatever it is than me. And that's fine. There's always going to be someone who's better, but it's irrelevant. It's really irrelevant to my journey. So it has a sense of calm that it knows that everything's going to be fine. My ego, on the other hand, is but we're not as good as this person, or, I don't have some sort of degree. Why am I talking about this? Or it's always going to find sort of a reason to tell me not to do the thing. And I've found listening to my instinct has been my most powerful source of empowerment. It's been crazy. The more I listen to my instinct, the more I find myself going down a path that feels more right for me. And part of that is, I think we talked about this, is sometimes saying no to something that doesn't feel right, just as much as it's because I think in this society, we're always about just say yes to every opportunity. And I think saying yes is so much easier than saying no. And, and part of that is if somebody's giving you advice, that's amazing. Listen to it, but still listen to your instinct, because your instinct is the only thing that's going to lead you down the path that you're supposed to be on. And the thing with instincts that's tricky is that it doesn't really make sense at the time. You're just going to feel like something is right, or that you should say no to something. And you're not going to have all the proof in the world as to why. It's only going to come later for the most part. And so there's this experience of trusting your instinct and giving it the chance to prove itself to you. And for me personally, my instinct I've had moments where I didn't listen to my instinct and got really, really burned. And I think maybe that was supposed to happen so that I can be aware that my instinct is actually really, really powerful. There have been situations where an opportunity comes my way and it looks amazing on paper, but I feel absolute shit about it. My heart is burning. I feel really scared. And it's also scary and funny because it's, you can misinterpret instinct with fear too. And so that's why I think it takes time to sort of experiment with these things and figure it out. But in my experience, instinct is the sound within you that really doesn't make sense. So if you're scared of something, then you know yourself best. You know that you're scared because, oh, this is too big of an opportunity, or this is really new and I've never done this before. Instinct is a huge red flag. But for me, I don't know why my instinct is saying no. And as I said, I've had instances where I didn't listen to it and I went through with the thing and hated myself. And then just learned to listen to it. And then now I get really excited when I get that gut feeling, and I am so empowered to say no. I love it. I've in the past few months, I've said no to stuff that doesn't feel right. And it's such an incredible feeling.
If you don't mind me asking, what are an example of when you went against your instinct? And in my world, I label it as my gut or my intuition. It's just that feeling. I'm a very intuitive person versus going with logic, because I believe logic can't measure what if on the other side. Your brain can't measure that other side of fear, but your intuition's telling you to break through that other wall of whatever that barrier is to get to the goal to the other side. So what is an example of you not listening to your instinct, if you're comfortable with sharing a specific example and how it burned you? And then what's another one where you denied logic or everything that said to take this opportunity and you went with your gut, your instinct, and your intuition? I would love to know.
So the thing that's interesting with instinct is if you got an opportunity, felt really shit about it, and still took it, then you'll know your instinct was right. But if you got an opportunity, listened to your instinct, and didn't take it, then there's no proof because you didn't take it, right? So I wouldn't know the other side of it, but a situation that happened to me, I think like 6 months ago, is I was emailed by someone about a project that sounded really, really cool. But I felt really, really awful about it from day one. Like I had sleepless nights, but it made no sense that I had to ignore it. I was like, there's absolutely no red flag here. Like nothing, like it's fine. And so I said yes to it. And a little bit down the line, it turns out the project sort of lasted like a month and a half, and it was the worst month and a half of my career, like easily. The client turned out to be impossible, and it was just the worst experience of my life. And then that voice made sense. It really did make sense. I was like, this is what I was scared of. I knew this was going to happen. A part of me knew, I don't know how, but a part of me knew because there were really no red flags. And that's hindsight. That's how it works, right? Later on, you're like, oh, maybe this was a red flag. Maybe this was a red flag. Yeah, but at the time, I didn't feel like there were any red flags. And so if I had listened to that instinct, I would have spared myself. But at the same time, if I had listened, maybe I wouldn't have this experience where I'm like, wow, my instinct was like a superpower. And now, like, to me, the voice is very distinct, or a lot more distinct than it used to. Because now I'll know if something is just scaring me or if it's really instinct. It feels different. And that part maybe I can't explain, but it's just a gut feeling. And if that feeling is saying yes, then amazing, and go for it. But if that feeling is saying no, don't feel like you need to just because like, oh, I'm lucky enough to even have had this opportunity. You also have to think that whoever is giving you this opportunity is also lucky to have you, and that you should take care of yourself and be kind to yourself. But as I said, instinct is really interesting. It takes time for you to it's going to be very different for each person. It takes time for you to figure it out on your own and figure out your own gut. But I think that if you have the intention, it's going to start going in that direction. If you have the intention to start listening to your instinct, like at the beginning.
I feel like it's a self-awareness muscle that you need to put to work often and get burned 100%. A couple times. I 100%. Guess like from my aspect, it's like, I know when it worked, if my gut was like, wow, you shouldn't be taking on this logo project or something because you're so passionate about these other things. And I realize it works when I say no to something that didn't feel right, because that opened the doors for something even greater that came my way, that time would have been allocated forward to something that was not a hell yes. That's when I'm knowing like, okay, yes, I trusted the universe in here to like deliver me something that I really wanted or needed, and I'm like, I was rewarded for trusting my gut there.
Yeah. And
sorry, go on.
No, keep going.
In terms of trusting your instinct, then I very much align to you because you're not out there trying to attract clients, which a lot of people, I would say a majority of people I talk to, their biggest struggle is, how do I attract clients with my work? And I feel like I'm more aligned to you, not necessarily I'm putting out like a merch line, but what did your instinct say when it was time for you to pursue your own product line or your own online merch business versus client work?
I think I started listening to instinct a little bit before the shop even happened. Part of that was I knew in my gut that I didn't want to do client work primarily. So I'm still open to like taking on the odd project here and there, but I didn't want it to be the main thing that I focus all my time on, because that's not
the
where
main
my
stream of
was.
income. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's tough because if you want to get clients, then a section of your time is going to have to go into trying to attract those clients. And I found that I was a lot more fulfilled just spreading that message out there and talking to people and being real. Now, that was a very difficult decision because there's going to be sort of a gap there. There's going to be a lot of experiences and a lot you have to learn. But my instinct knew that was what was right for me. And even through that path, through creating the Cosmic Feminist, like I've had people tell me like, oh, you're not creating enough feminist content. And I'm like, what is feminist? Like, to me, it's all one, right? But I understand what they're saying. I really do. But if I hadn't listened to my instincts, then maybe I wouldn't be where I am. I had to listen to my instinct with every single post that I put out there, even if it's not, oh, but you're not this enough or that enough or not spiritual enough, especially because I have these two buckets. In my mind, like I've heard that comment more than once, and I know the people saying it absolutely mean the best, but they're not me. They don't know. They don't know what I know deep in my heart. And I was like, you know what? It's fine. I don't know why it's fine, but I know it's going to be fine. So that's instinct. And then part of the instinct is I'm really like, I've been part of 2 coaching groups. I don't know if I didn't mention it. So I had Tom Ross's coaching group. I was part of it for a few months and that was amazing. And I was also part of Dina Rodriguez's coaching, where I had like a call with her for a month for a couple of months too. And the thing that I noticed about myself through all that is obviously when you're in a coaching group, you're going to have someone say, we think you should do this. And I'll be like, okay, great. Put it in my mind and then sort of adjust it to what my instinct thinks I should do. And a lot of times I'd be like, actually, that's not for me. And that's why I talk about fear and stuff like that. Like, for example, when I first had to start my newsletter at the time, I was like, had no idea how to start a newsletter. I was freaked out about it, but I knew it was the right thing to do. So that wasn't instinct. That was fear. You know what I mean? I was scared of starting a newsletter. It sounded overwhelming at the time. Of course, now I'm like, oh my God, what was I afraid of? But it did. It sounded overwhelming at the time. And I was like, we'll push through it. So there was no instinct there to not do it. But sometimes like when to open my shop, what products to put on there, a lot of it is instinct. And I just try to be sort of in touch with that part of myself a lot. And sometimes I'm not. And sometimes I think what the thing that sort of gets in the way of instinct for me is when I get distracted with like real life stuff, like a lot is going on, a launch is going on or something like that. I start thinking about the practicalities of it and my instinct sort of takes a back seat.
Just kind of clouds your judgment and you start thinking of things outside of your control, or?
I start thinking of like what needs to be done as opposed to what I feel is right. And then sometimes I have to take a step back and I'm like, you know what, it's fine. So I'm making this vague because I want it to work for everyone, however way it works. Is what I'm trying to say is if you get any advice and it doesn't feel right, it really doesn't, and you've gotten to that point where I feel like there's a level of trust with your instincts, then that's fine. You don't have to do things exactly the way someone else is saying them, but it is important to listen. I think it's really important to listen and to take it in and then let your instinct take charge to essentially tailor it to you. Because I don't think we're all supposed to be out there doing the same thing. Our brands are not all the same. Our target audiences are not the same. And nobody's going to know what you're trying to do as much as you. So if you're listening to that voice in your instinct, you're going to empower it more and more and more, and it's going to prove itself to you. But it's like a two-way street. You have to trust it for it to trust you.
I like that. And I think it is important. Like, I'm a coach too, and I give insight to what I feel will work best to what one of my students is saying they want to accomplish for that end result. And there's no one size fits all piece of advice, one size fits all creative career path. And I've been given advice from my coaches too, but my gut, like, you internalize it, you take all this I think it's life in general, hence the Perspective podcast. You take in all different angles, you internalize it, run it through your own soul and your own filter of your soul, I guess is how I would say it. And then it comes out through you with your own creative, critical thinking, you know, and that's, I think, so true for an artist. I think that's how you really tap into your artistic voice and your style.
Yeah, it's so important.
So describe kind of like your current shop setup right now and why you don't do why it's on demand versus sitting on stock, and what are some of the pros and the cons, and what have you found that really works? Because I know it's not something like, hey, if this is the best performing on Instagram, this is going to be the best performing in my shop. You know, how do you find that fine line of I'm creating for me, but also I have to keep in mind, what are other people going to want to buy?
Yeah. And that's really hard. And I feel like there's definitely a learning curve there. For me, sort of the shop, the way I thought of it from the beginning is it has to be an extension of exactly the kind of energy I'm sending in the Cosmic brand, right? It can't be like different or, oh, people are going to want to buy this, so I'm going to change it. Essentially, it's the same energy that I'm putting in. But what's different about the shop is you can't just assume that if something did really well on social media, that it's going to do well on a t-shirt or on a poster. And I've had to learn that the hard way, because I was like, oh, this is like my best performing post. It's going to be my best performing product. And that was absolutely not true. And why something works or it doesn't, I think is going to be tailored to each person and their brand. I'm still sort of figuring that out. But what I figured out so far is that how do people want to sort of present themselves to the world? I think that's really important. So I take the pieces on my shop that I would want to wear. And then if I want to wear it, then somebody else might want to wear it, instead of just blindly following what the most best performing piece is. So I make it about me, just similarly to my posts where, do I feel the thing? Then someone else is going to feel the thing. And I found that helps. It sort of pivots it in a direction of being more specific to what would work on a product. And then of course, design wise, not something that will work on a poster will work on a t-shirt. You have to sort of tailor that. And in that sense, what's been really helpful for me is, if I have a design that I know that I already have a concept and I know the design will look cool on a t-shirt, is during the sketching process, I'll mock it up on a t-shirt before like going all the way through the design process and then being like, oh, actually this doesn't look great. And so every now and then, and to me, like not everything I draw will be a product. That's really not the intention, because sometimes a lot of things that I draw is just a message that I want to send out to the world and that's it.
And what you're feeling at that time.
Yeah, that's it. And I don't support, because it puts stress on you when you're trying to think of making a thing into a product. And I like to be a little more sort of mindful of what goes into a product rather than, okay, everything goes on a product and let's see what hits. You know what I mean?
Defeating too. Like that's like starting a side project feeling like you have to monetize it immediately.
Yeah. And it's too much. So what I do is I'm conscious before drawing the thing that this could be a good product, whatever that product is. And then that's sort of in the back of my mind as I'm designing it. And I found that to work really well. But yeah, that's just being true to yourself it's still applicable in a shop as much as it is in your brand. And in terms of marketing and everything like that, I have a really, really hard time with marketing. It does not come naturally to me. But I read a lot. And I, as I said, I was part of coaching groups where I've had people tell me their experiences or what they think would work for me. But again, that's when instinct kicks in. No matter what I read or what I hear that people think I should do, I then tailor it to myself and what I feel like works for my brand. I think a good example of that is how many emails I send. I know a lot of people say like, you should send like one email a week. And I think that's totally fine for whoever wants to do that, but it's never felt right for me. So I think I send like 1 or 2 emails a month sometimes, and I'm fine with that. And I'm like, that's what I want to say today. And that's what I'm going to say. And that's the email that I'm going to send to the subscribers. But I'm not going to go ahead and be like, hey, everybody who's listening to this podcast, do not send an email a week. I can't tell you what to do. All I can tell you is what worked for me and for my gut instinct. And is it the right thing to do? I don't know. It just feels right for me. And I feel like we're so lucky to be able to have our own businesses where you're like literally putting your heart and soul into it. If you're going to let someone else's voice take over, then you're giving away this great opportunity of being you. Like
you're giving away your power. Damn,
yeah, this is not the time to do that. Like if you have it, I think it's a privilege to be able to do this, either as a side hustle or full time. If you have the talent to do it, yet the heart to do it, that's a privilege.
The courage.
Yeah, and do it like you. Don't let anybody else's voice get in there. Let it be 100% you. And if you're wrong about something, it's okay. You'll learn. You'll figure it out. Like life will let you know. So yeah, I think you mentioned something about print on demand, right?
Yeah. How has that model of print on demand, like what have been the pros and the cons, but more of like the pros to it?
I think the only con is I can't really plan how the package will be sent out. So the actual packaging, like the paper packaging or plastic packaging, I can't control that. That's been the only thing that's like, I wish I can like customize that or make it a box or make it something slightly different. Other than that, honestly, I can't even imagine ordering like hundreds of t-shirts without even knowing if the thing is going to sell well. That's so scary. I don't know how that works for people that do. Maybe they know they have this one design and it works and they're only selling maybe this one design. I don't have experience with that. But for me, it's given me the ability to experiment and to figure out what works for people and to honestly just have fun with it. And also waste. Like it would give me such anxiety if I had like piles of stuff in my house that are not selling. And you'd lose so much money. So especially if you're starting off, like please don't order a bunch of t-shirts or a bunch of posters or whatever and just hope to God that somebody is going to buy them. Especially if you're still experimenting, you still want to have fun with it. I don't know if there's going to be a point for me to pivot and to fulfill the stuff my own. I can't even imagine like the amount of time it would take from my life. I mean, I value my time too. I don't know if I will, but right now I don't even see it anywhere in the future.
I wish I would have had you like 3 or 4 years ago, especially in 2018 when I had the 2-year launch or 3-year celebration of the Perspective podcast. I had like a bunch of t-shirts I ordered and posters and, everybody's like, oh man, I would buy that. And then you find out like what less than 10%, shit, maybe like 2% of people who say they'll buy it will actually buy it. I still have a stack of dope, sick posters. Thankfully I got the t-shirts gone a year later, but I've been in that world of sitting on stock and I could have used you back then in my little ear of like, especially if you don't have an audience in the beginning and don't have traction on your work. But even like me, I had like, when I put out my first product, I had a 10,000 followers at the time, and I had a little 5x7 letterpress print, built a story and narrative around it. Thought I was going to sell 300 of them easy. And I still have like 100 left today, you know? So
I'm telling you, even if you have an audience,
exactly.
If the product isn't right, it's not going to matter. You can market it in the best way you can or do all the tricks, but it's not, the product has to be right. And unfortunately, you might have to be burned and figure out that the product wasn't right. If you really believe in your product and you know it's going to sell, go for it. But this is a chance exactly. But you know what? Like, even if you want to do it, why not experiment with a print on demand first? And if it actually sells really well and you want to just go all in, do it. But at least give yourself the chance to experiment with that.
I love it. And this whole thing is just a trial and error process of finding what works, what doesn't work, what works for you, what hasn't been working for you. So I know marketing isn't your favorite cup of tea. You're straight up an artist. You want to create. But what are some marketing tactics that you have found that work really well within selling your print on demand merch line?
That's a really
I know you keep things pretty limited.
Yeah. I mean, I do have a limited quantity with everything. And more than it being a marketing tactic, I just don't want my stuff to just not have value to it. I want it to all be limited edition. I think I have like 50 or 60 items of each product that I sell. I think that changes per product. But what I do really with that is this specific product will be gone, but the design can be translated into something else. So I have like a universe, you are the universe is you sweatshirt that did pretty well and it's almost sold out now. So what I'm going to do now is just, I transferred it into a t-shirt. And so it's not super limiting to do that, but you want people to feel like they're getting something unique. And like not a lot of people in their circle are most likely going to have it. I really think that the whole limited quantity thing works, but it also works for me as to what I want for my brand more than it just being a marketing thing.
Like that's a huge psychological trigger is sense of urgency and scarcity. So that's huge for sure.
And in terms of scarcity, I haven't tested out the theory of, having something available for a limited time. That's something I really want to test out. I think that would be cool to test out too. But scarcity definitely works. Sales do work. I've done a few sales for multiple reasons, but I try to not be that person that constantly has a sale and people are only used to buying my stuff on sale. The only 2 sales I have going on is my newsletter. When you sign up, you get a 15% off. And I feel like people who sign up to my newsletter
money
deserve
right
it.
there. I think that's a huge marketing.
And believe it or not, a lot of people sign up and don't use the discount. And so I'm like, okay, thank you.
Hey, at least you got them on as a lead. So
yeah. And so people don't always use it, but it's good. And I feel like people signing up to the newsletter deserve it. Like they're giving you their email. And then I had like a birthday sale for my birthday last year or this year. And that did really well, but I can't depend on that. You know what I mean? And I can't always have sales like pushing me through.
You're just not training people to be like, hey, it's Black Friday. This is the time I'm finally going to buy something from her and support her.
Yeah. But I think that's as far as it goes with how well versed I am with marketing. Talk to me in a few months and we'll see.
I'm about to say,
I'm still figuring this shit out.
Yeah, you're figuring it out for sure, but it seems to be going well and it can only improve. And I see someone like Dina always trying something new. Like, man, she's got that creator hat, but like
incredible.
That fucking marketing genius she has
going
on.
I think Dina has that marketing mind. Like I wish I did. I don't. But she has that. It's like instinct for her. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm. And
I've seen her people should follow her. She has a Printful course. She's very open about the kind of stuff she tries. She also has a podcast that she releases every week where she's literally just telling people what she tried. It's really cool to hear it from her, what worked for her and what didn't. I still think that everybody's audience is going to be different. What works for her might not work for someone else, but it's really cool just listening to someone's experience because it's like so close to what you're doing. She's cool.
She's a great case study too of like, I've known her for years now, back in when she was just like hand lettering days. We were in the Sean West community. And then I've seen her just whole brand do a 180 and just take off. So yeah, she's a great person to watch as well. Like I creep is a wrong word. I would say very observative. I'm a very observative person of like certain people who I think are just doing incredible things. Yeah. Creepy just sounds really weird. Like, oh, I'm just on the other end of my phone watching them. Like that's creepy. I'm very observative. From shit, where do I even go from there? Calling myself a creep.
Let's just end it there.
Let's just end it there. Okay, let's go on to this. So what's one piece of advice you would give yourself when you were just starting off whether it was your design career, professional career? Like what's a professional, what's some type of advice you would give yourself when you're just starting off basically?
Try to get to know yourself, because I feel like if you don't have a passion or a message that you're trying to send the world, either you're trying to get client work or not, I feel like that's going to be very limiting, and you're just going to sort of follow other people and what they're doing and be original to you. And first of all, just realize that you are unique and you're different for a reason. And the world needs to hear your perspective. You're here for a reason, and your voice matters. And so that sense of empowerment is really important as a first step to realize that your voice matters, wherever part in your career you are.
I like that. Let's go to rapid fire. So the first
Sweet.
question, if you were on death row, what would your last slice of pizza be?
Sushi pizza.
Sushi pizza.
Because I don't love pizza.
I have to say, I think I read it somewhere.
On it, I love it.
I think I've read it somewhere that you're not a fan of pizza. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I'm not a fan of sushi.
No, I think do you hate sushi, or are you just not a fan?
Hate is a very strong word. There's not a lot of things I hate in life. I just strongly dislike sushi. I try it maybe 2 or 3 times a year. So I give it a chance. Like growing up, hardcore picky. Like I didn't like shit. And being with my wife, she's really opened me up to things that she loves sushi. And she can't have it now that she's like, we've had our baby girl by the time this comes out. So then she can have sushi again, but she hasn't been able to have sushi. So yeah, I want to like it. Yeah. Why don't you like pizza then?
So I don't not like pizza. That's the thing. So if pizza's there, I'm going to be excited. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to have some, but I'm never going to be like, let's order pizza because I'm craving it. Do you see the difference?
Okay.
But I'm always, every single day of my life, will want to order sushi. Like it's my favorite food. Like,
okay.
Like,
sushi to you is like pizza to me.
Yes.
Okay. How about this? If you were forced to have pizza on death row, that was the only option, what would your choice be to have? Anywhere specific? Any specific kind?
Oh God, I don't know. Should I just say like, what am I? I don't know. I can't answer this question.
Okay, what was the last pizza you ate?
What was on it? It was like, there was feta cheese on it, and that was really good. That's all I remember. I'm sorry.
All right, let's change the question. If you were on death row, what would your last kind of sushi be?
Oh, spicy California roll.
All right,
so
that was
basic,
an easy one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We can have like an asterisk in here for other people who don't want pizza. Okay. How about this one? If you could have lunch with one person, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
J.K. Rowling. I'd hope that would be like a 5-hour lunch because I have so many questions for her.
Okay. We haven't gotten to a lot of fun facts on this one. What's one fun fact about you that people don't know?
I'm a leap year baby. I was born on February 29th.
Yeah. And that's why you had the sale, right? That's why it was a special birthday.
And I kind of said like, oh, the sale's not going to happen for another like 3 years.
Ooh, sense of urgency. Boom, marketing tactic. Okay. I haven't asked you this one ever before. If you were stranded on an island, what are 3 things you have to have in your possession to refrain from dying from boredom?
Oh, from boredom. Okay. I was like, oh my God, food. Okay. So it would be my iPad and my iPad. My phone, but then my iPad. Okay, this is a really hard question.
Put you on the spot. You weren't ready for this.
I would get, my phone, because it would have all my Harry Potter audiobooks on it, and I would never be bored if I had
those
that.
Harry Potter audiobooks, I binged the shit out of those last year on like a Texas trip. I can't remember who the narrator was, but oh my goodness, so good.
He's so good.
Yeah.
Oh my God, so entertaining. I love it so much. So I could listen to those books over and over until someone comes to save me from this island.
I'm feeling like you're needing some kind of solar charger here for your iPad.
Yeah, right. It's an iPad and a phone. Thank God. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm getting a
iPad
charger.
comes with the pencil because you most likely have a case for it. So that can be a 3-in-1 deal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So some kind of solar charger. That makes sense then.
Fantastic.
If you were reincarnated.
I would die without technology, I guess.
From boredom though. If you were reincarnated, what would your new career path be outside of being an artist? I
would be a yoga instructor.
Are you pretty involved in like yoga now?
I love yoga. I'm just not that good at it. I try to do it on a daily basis as sort of a mindfulness thing. It's just my body is not cooperating for me to be as good as a yoga instructor. But if I could like redo my life, I'd probably do that.
Cool. This is an interesting one, especially with your brand. Do you believe in any type of alien life form or just life existing outside of our current solar system of what we know?
I don't 100% believe in it, but I would never say that they don't exist. If they do, it would be cool to make contact, as long as they don't murder me.
As long as they don't put you on death row. Okay.
Yeah.
Where can people go to follow you online and support you?
So I'm at the Cosmic Feminist on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and my website is www.thecosmicfeminist.com.
Cool. I'll make sure to link all that up in the show notes. Well, I want to just thank you so much for doing round 2 with me. And
Amazing.
The first round was so good, but man, I think we outdid it on this one. So it was meant to happen. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate the hell out of you. And I can't wait to drop this one on everyone.
Cool. Thank you.
No problem. Have a good day.
Thanks again for listening. It'd be awesome if you took the time to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and let the comment below so we can connect. Again, if you want to catch a shout out as a future listener of the week, make sure you subscribe to the show on iTunes and give it a rating and review.